Hi, hello guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. And it's part number 2 of my tips for self-taught artists. In last video, we discussed goals and preparing the plan based on this goal, and today I'm gonna introduce some new stuff. Just a side note, in the back you can see me drawing. It's actually like speed painting of one of my portraits, and you don't need to watch it. It's just drawing, so feel free to listen it kind of as a podcast and do your own thing in the meantime. So regarding the tips, something that I genuinely wish I kind of knew earlier before I started with art is that most of the battles regarding art, learning, progress, and your art career are gonna be fought in your own head. And that brings me to tip number 3, which is figure yourself out. And I know it sounds kind of like weird to talk about it, but I'm gonna explain it and how it connects to the arts very shortly. And don't worry, it's not like a deep dive in our heads or anything like that. But the thing that you need to keep in mind is that you are a pretty unique person. I am a unique person. Your friends are unique. Like basically everyone is unique in their own kind of way, right? We all have different jobs, we have different patience levels, we have different social situation, resources available like money or time, and we do have different obligations, right? We do have limits, time limits, and basically everyone's situation is very different, and we kind of want to figure out what is best to us and how can we connect, manage drawing and learning drawing with our specific situation. So for example, you may have had tons of advice around, tons of tips, methods, and suggestions when you are studying, but the thing is, like, not all of them are gonna like work for you or even be possible for you. Good advice that you probably have heard is sketch just 15 minutes a day. And while it's pretty good advice, you see, like, back in the day that didn't really work for me. When I started drawing, I was working as a flight attendant, and I did this insanely long flights, like to New Zealand, to Brazil, to States, and that would be 1, 2, 3, up to 5 days at work. And during this time, I wasn't able to draw. I didn't have time. I was constantly jet lagged. When I get back from work, I'm just like dead tired, completely out of my mind. The only thing I have is just to go to sleep and like wake up 2 days later or something like that. And then, week has passed and I'm feeling like, oh my god, I didn't draw. What am I gonna do now? Like, I will never achieve anything because I spent so much time at work, blah blah blah, and I would fall down in this kind of spiral of like self-doubt and not feeling like I'm working hard enough. But now when I look at it, I feel like genuinely and objectively there was just like no way for me to make time for drawing. And then my day off would come and I would sit down, and instead of like working daily during the whole week, I would just work during one day, but I would like put all my effort in this one day, which is basically what everyone says not to do. But because of my situation, that was the only way I could do things, and it still got me somewhere. So you will hear a lot of like advices like that, like sketch daily, do that, don't do this. But the truth is, not everything will work for you, which brings me to my next tip, which is take each advice with a grain of salt. This is basically explained, so I'm going back to tip number 3 and I'm gonna carry on with explaining figuring yourself out. So going back to lack of time as a circumstance we are discussing, I would also say that maybe I didn't sit and draw daily, but there were other things I was doing to kind of improve. For example, I tried to observe a lot. I would literally see at work in my uniform in the galley and just switch on and off the lights and change the light and look at the cups, pour some water in them and see how the reflection changes, just to kind of analyze for the future drawing how the world works. I was basically observing. When I was like in the bus going to the hotel, I would always look outside of the window and try to look for inspirations. I would talk to my coworkers and I would try to enter some more inspirational conversation and topics. Like, we had this massive international crew, right? Everyone every day was from a different part of the world, and I would be, okay, so what's so good about your country? Like, what do you think is pretty? What should I check out if I ever visit and stuff? And when I was like finished with work, I was already like very, very inspired and very like kind of curious to see. So I would already have this motivation, and I would be ready to like sit down and draw for my off day. So this is something you can also try to figure out, like with your specific circumstance. When you can't draw, for example, what else you can do? Maybe you sit at work and maybe you can listen to some kind of podcast, or maybe you can take a walk home from like job or university or whatever you're doing, and try to observe as much stuff as you can on the way, and maybe every day you can find a different route or something like that. So there's a lot of things you can do to improve your skills when you're not necessarily drawing, right? And I highly encourage you to like try and think about your specific situation and what you can do in this situation, because as I mentioned, everyone's unique, and my solutions may not necessarily work for you, but I'm sure you can figure something out. So I kind of discussed like time / work-life balance scenario, but there are also other things I need to discuss. And all of those things you probably had or maybe already felt, like art blocks, burnout, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. Those are all things that tied up, and if you didn't experience yet, you most likely will experience it at some point. Even though I hope you won't, there is a very, very high chance that will happen. And it's very important to kind of know how to combat this. For example, for art block, I have a very quick fix. Like, all I have to do is literally get myself inspired in a way. So I have massive Pinterest board, which I look at, and there's just so many cool things there that I already gathered throughout the years. So every time I feel like, oh, I don't know what to draw, I can't draw, I'm blocked, whatever, I just open this board and look at it. If that doesn't work, I usually put a few hours into playing games that I like, because seeing those games and thinking, oh my god, like somebody did that, it's so cool, it gets me inspired like automatically. And for me, it's like a very easy fix, and it totally works for me, but it doesn't work for some of my friends. For example, some of my friends need to take a few days off from drawing and do some other stuff. Some of my friends are trying to join art challenges, because having this group motivations and the fact that other people are doing it, it works for them as well. And some people are joining courses, and basically there's so many solutions, but probably only one or two of those things will work for you. So it's very good to take time and basically try to figure out what's good for you, right? And for the things like burnout, it's very, very personal, and most of the people need to take some time off. I personally don't have a quick fix for burnout. Usually, when I'm feeling burnout, it's because of the other things happening in my life. Like either I'm pushing myself too much, or there's just like a lot of, not very nice things happening around me, and I kind of have to take a break, stop or slow down for some time, and in few weeks, maybe a month, the things will go back to normal. But I don't have like a straight answer for you. The only thing I can tell you is, when those things happening to you, like, do not panic. Take the break if you need. Don't be hard on yourself, and don't push yourself too hard, because it's not worth it. Like, you have your whole life basically left to figure out the drawing and learn drawing, and honestly, like, month or 2 months off, it's not gonna damage your career. Even if you're like pushing yourself very hard because you're looking for the job and you need a job, it's okay. Like, don't freak out. The worst case scenario, you can always find some like side job or anything like that, but just don't damage yourself in the process. This is what I'm basically trying to say. Okay, that was a bit sad maybe for a moment, so we will go back to something more practical. And for example, knowing yourself will also affect the courses you should take, right? I do not know a single person who can buy like a full package course that you have to watch on your own and study on your own, and they just able to finish it from like first video to the last video. I do not know a single one. I personally, if I spend money on the course, I would only buy the course that guarantee a teacher's feedback. For me, all the other courses, I'm just not gonna use them. I will watch like 2, 3, maybe up to 10 videos out of 40, and I will just lack motivation to finish it. Maybe at some point I will go back to this course, but very, very little chance I will actually sit down and manage to finish everything. So for this reason, I'm choosing courses with feedback. And the same goes with the books or videos, or other kinds of stuff you should study from. I'm finding very, very hard to learn from the books. It's much easier for me to learn from like the courses or experiment even. For some reason, I just can't focus very well, and maybe it's bad. But I'm trying to kind of adjust and do things that that are most comfortable for me. And this same kind of rule applies to planning stuff and having goals. We talked in the last upload about importance of having a goal, and for me personally, I like to have maximum 2-3 goals at the time. Some people have a year, 10 years long plans prepared, like for real, like with every little step of the process prepared and written down. And this is again something like I don't like to have such a strict schedule. I prefer to have more loose schedule, and it's also up to you to prepare your schedule in the way that's comfortable for you, right? There's no point in preparing like a couple of years plan ahead when a lot of things may change, because the thing that will happen to you if you're not meeting your own expectation is that you're gonna be really disappointed in yourself, and you just shouldn't. There's no point to feel bad about the things that you basically do in your own free time. And I just wanted to like mention it very quickly regarding the goals and figuring yourself out, that basically try to find a method and try to find a schedule that works for you. As I mentioned before, like, you don't need to sketch every day. Like, of course, if you can sketch every day, like, awesome, great. Currently, right now, I do sketch every day, but when I started, it just wasn't possible for me. It's good if you can, but it's not end of the world when you can't. And that was way longer, once again, than I expected. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys, and see you in the next one.